A small message from me before we kick off with today's video. iDRIVEACLASSIC is proud to be sponsored and insured by Adrian Flux. If you haven't heard of Adrian Flux before, they're the UK's leading specialist motor insurance broker, covering everything from classic and vintage cars right through to heavily modified sports cars. So whether you're in a Morris Marina, a 90s retro runabout, or something with a bit more oomph under the bonnet, give them a call for your next policy. I've popped a link to their site in the description box below. Hi guys, it's Steph from iDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back with our very first episode of something new for the channel. It's Tinkering Tuesdays. So I do a lot on my own cars in my spare time, and I've not really been filming it because I get a bit sweary and angry, but seeing as the cylinder head video did so well, I thought, well, let's kick this off on the channel as something different, and I'll show you what I'm doing behind the scenes when I'm not reviewing cars. Now, of course, because the weather is a little bit iffy at the moment because we're in spring, I've had a very kind loan of the workshop space today from Little Garage Classics in Yorkshire. Thank you very much to Ed and his team for lending me this space. It's far more preferable than working on the roadside and being lashed by rain as I go. So in today's video, what I'm going to show you is, and if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that my engine seized. I recently did a top end rebuild, and what I need to ascertain today is getting the engine out and finding out why we've had this problem, because it shouldn't have happened, and we need to find out what's going on. So let's crack on and I'll show you what I'm doing. First things first, I'm going to mask off these bonnet hinges. Now there's a reason for this. We're about to take the bonnet off, and this will mean when I put it back on in the coming weeks, I'm going to know exactly how it went on. So I just took it off. It took me 2 or 3 minutes, and then I got Ed to help me take it off, because after dropping it on myself twice, I thought actually I will ask for somebody's help and I'll stop being so stubborn. When I watched this footage back, I realised why this job took me 9 hours, because I was faffing around with stupid stuff like this. So as you can see, I took this bonnet stay off. Now, if I'm honest, could I have winged it and not taken that off? Probably, but the whole point of this video was to really not cut corners. So as you can see, I grappled with this probably for about 20 minutes. It was stupid, really. You probably knew this already, but you need to take that battery off. And as I watched this video back, I realised just how scabby this engine bay looks. People must think this car is absolutely rotten, and I promise you it's not. So I detached these plates holding the radiator in. Now, one of the key things to do is to slide a bit of cardboard in as well, because I spent weeks looking for a radiator for this thing, and I'll be damned if I'm about to find another one. So I've put that in there, because if it falls back on the fan and it goes through the fan, that is game over, and I'm going to swear even more than I already did taking off that bonnet stay. Also detach the rubber hoses. This took me absolutely ages. So I watch it back and I think, how did this job take me 9 hours? But look at me, I'm an absolute idiot. Now, I forgot to tell you, I put a little box down below to catch all the water coming out, but there's always a little bit of overspill anyway, so at the end of the job I just mopped it up. Try not to worry about that sort of thing. We're just trying to get these hoses off with at least stress as possible, because honestly there's far more stressful times ahead than these hoses. This is a child's play compared to what's to come. Bit more of my rotten engine bay there. Now, as you can see, I got all the water down into this box down here. I've not filmed this very well, but I just wanted to show you that you do need to collect all that, because of course antifreeze can be toxic, especially to cats who like to drink it. So if you've got any kitties, lock them indoors before you do this job. Just pop the radiator over here. Yet more hoses, as if I hadn't had enough of these things. This took a lot of time that I wasn't really expecting. So if you're going to do this job yourself, probably give yourself a good day to do it. This handy tool that I borrowed off Ed was an absolute godsend in getting these hoses off. So I'd recommend one if you're going to do the job yourself. Air filter off, probably one of the easiest jobs to do. So the next thing I did was take the fuel tank feed pipe off. God knows why I was so gentle there. And then we moved on to something which honestly really just stressed me out so much. It was getting the accelerator and choke cable off. So as you can see, I used these long nose pliers. What I then did is got the spanner in, and by this point I was at like peak stress. This and getting the exhaust manifold off was probably the hardest things for me, because it was so fiddly. Why is it so difficult? This probably took me best part of half an hour because I just couldn't get it right. In the end, it was really a case of trial and error, because I don't remember doing this alone last time I did it. And to get this out, it was pinch and push. These are the things that the workshop manual don't tell you. They also don't say that when you drop a spanner on the floor when you're working and you already feel stressed to your limit, the spanner is what's going to throw you over the edge. So again, getting those long nose pliers in, just gripping that there. You can see, just getting that in there. It looks so simple when you're watching it, but honestly, take it from somebody who was stressfully dropping the tools for about 20 minutes before they got the hang of it. This took quite a bit of work. So yep, just pull that out there. Looking back, a tip that I would give everybody is get all those hoses off first. Now, what I was considering doing was actually labelling them all up to work out where they were going to go back. But I thought, actually, when I put this all back together, I'm probably going to put all new hoses on everything, because I've owned this car for what now, nearly a year and a half, and I'm not entirely sure when all this was changed. So I thought it's probably good practice to change it all now, and hopefully it will prevent more problems in the future. Now, let me talk to you about the exhaust manifold, because that's really where I came unstuck and got quite stressed. I want to be really, really honest with you in that this really tested my patience. I was already at that point of screaming when I was trying to get that accelerator cable out, but by the time I got to this and my nerves were already frayed, getting this off was possibly the worst bit of the job. In fact, this was worse than something coming up where you see my hair trapped in some small wheels. This was the worst bit of the job. It took me about 45 minutes, dropping spanners, trying different tools, because the spanner was the only thing I could get in there. Sure, many experienced mechanics would tell me I could have done it a million better ways, but you know what? Someone who doesn't do this for a living, don't think it was too bad. We've now reached the point that I didn't think we would get to without someone battering me or me just walking off and getting a brand new car. We now have all the ancillaries off the engine. I'll tell you what, the hardest thing was getting that exhaust manifold off. I honestly just thought, please, someone just bring me something else to drive, not this. But yeah, so all that is off. So what we need to do now is get the car up on axle stands. Now this is really, really important. So if, like me, you're a bit of a novice and you think, I'm just going to skip some time and just do it on a jack, please don't do that. That is really, really dangerous. Axle stands are the thing that you should definitely always work with. So you're going to get it up, get the bolts out the bell housing, separate the engine and gearbox, and then going to get this engine crane, and we can finally do a bit of exploration and find out what has really gone wrong. God, it's grim under here, isn't it? So I got underneath, I took the live off from the starter solenoid there, and then you'll see this strap at the back. That is your earth strap, so you want to be taking that off as well. Probably should have done this a little bit earlier. Now the next thing was removing the bell housing bolts. And do you know what? I thought this was going to be the hardest bit, and it was actually the easiest, because look how much grease and grime is under there. I probably should also mention that one of the greatest assets on this job has been this tin of Bulldog BDX that I've been using. So everything that was seized, I just sprayed it on and it's come off like a dream, which has probably saved me a little bit of time as I've gone along. However, the other tip that I would give you is don't end up like me. When I got underneath on the little creep out, I actually got my hair stuck in the wheels, and a bit of water dropped on me. So Ed actually had to pull my hair out of the wheels, which my hairdresser is going to love when I go back for an appointment next month. So yes, got the rest of the bolts out that bell housing, and then it was time to come back up on top and start separating it all out. As you can see, we're pretty far into it now, and in fact, really the only thing left, because I'm actually following, as you can see, the Marina Workshop Manual, the hardest working book on my bookshelf at the moment. I don't think I've really had time to read anything else of late. Now everything in this is laid out, so you get step by step on removing and step by step on refitting. So I'd got all the bolts out the bell housing, and I thought, well, there's something I'm missing, and of course it was these engine mounts. So as you can see, they're pretty they look a bit like elephant skin, if I'm being completely honest. So in fact, before I put the engine back in, or whichever engine is going to go back in, I've bought some new ones from Accelator in Bradford, new old stock, so they'll be going straight in, and I won't be putting those old ones back in, so they'll just be getting scrapped off there. So we've done all of that, so I think now it's high time to lift that engine out. Now you want to put a jack under your gearbox because you need it to be supported, because otherwise what will happen is when the engine comes out, it will drop to the floor. And remember, we don't rely on jacks, we always use axle stands. If there's one bit of advice you take away from this video, and it's something you don't do already, it should be that. It's almost time to take the engine out, and I tell you what, I'm very excited because, of course, we don't know what is giving the engine that bottom end starvation of oil, but we're certainly going to have a good go at finding out. So what I've done is I've prepped this now for attaching the engine hoist, which is an original Sykes pick vent. So if you like a little bit of history like me, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about this. So if you see, you've got two hooks on there. So you've got the bottom and you've got the top. Now we're going to use the top today. However, if you were doing a transverse A series, something like the Mini, you would use the bottom hooks, because what it does is it takes the engine out on a bit of a tilt, which means that you kind of pass the diff. So really clever, and I thought I'd just show you that because it's quite interesting. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, you've got the holes here, and they attach to number 8 and 9 head bolts. So those, of course, are our outer two. I've taken those off already, so I'm going to attach this up, and we're going to lift the engine out. So lots of you at home have already warned me and said, make sure you've taken off everything that's still attached, because it's going to make everything difficult. Now I've gone through it twice and checked it, so fingers crossed it's going to be pretty straightforward. Oh, I had to use some absolute brute force to rag this out. But also I was trying to be quite careful because with my inexperience, I wasn't too sure if I was going to end up breaking something. So what I did was, as you can see, every time I felt resistance, I went back and I just tried to do the gently approach. So whether that was just pumping it up slightly, but what you wanted to do was to do this properly and to do this right is to get that engine on almost a tilt to get it out. With a Morris Marina, this is so much easier because you take off that front panel and you can kind of just bring it straight out, and you're not having to try and get it all up on an angle and all the rest of it. I'll tell you what, this was, it wasn't easy. I won't, I'm not going to diminish the achievement of this. It wasn't easy at all. And this bit, I actually in the end took a break halfway through because I could feel myself getting quite worked up. And I think that's something that I would say to you if you're at home, is that if you are starting to feel a bit worked up and stressed and tense while you're doing it, just walk away from the job. Like, car's still going to be there when you get back. So yeah, I took a bit of a break from it and came back to it, because then when I came back to it, I realised that I could do it quite easily. So then it just popped away, and I thought, well, this is it, isn't it? When you're stressed and you're tense and you're trying to force things, that is when things break. So eventually I got it out, but then I realised I couldn't quite get it over the lip. So let me kind of show you if I can there. Right, well, this is exciting, isn't it? So the reason that we had to take a break there was because what was going on was we just weren't getting that clearance between the panel and the bottom of the engine. It was catching, and I just thought, I'm not going to rag it over, I'm not bodging this. So what I did was I just lowered it slightly, just lowered the car down slightly, and yeah, we're just going to pull it out. So hopefully this will come out. You'll get to see my very serious face, because even though I've done it, realistically, there's not more than, I wouldn't even say there's an inch in it, to be honest. Because, of course, you've got that bonnet catch in the centre. You just have to be careful. Yeah, there's only a few mil in it, to be honest. Here we go. Oh, finally! Ta-da! It's my 1275 and it's knackered. Right, let's have a think about what we're going to do with this, because as you can see, it's just, well, it's seized, isn't it? So what are we going to do? Let's have a chat with Ed, because he's the more sensible one, and I think I might actually take his advice this time. So over to you, Ed, and you can tell us what you want to do, and then I'll tell you what I want to do.
Right, so now the engine's out of the car, we're going to assess it. Speaking to Steph, instead of just replacing the entire unit with an unknown second-hand example, the best thing, I think, will be to send this off to a chap that I use local to me here in Yorkshire, who'll be able to assess it and tell us if this engine can be reconditioned, which, let's face it, in the long run is probably the best thing to do, because if we threw in a second-hand unit unknown to us, we might be here 6 months later. So we're going to send this off, tear it down, and see if we can rebuild it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did not expect this job to take this long or to be this knackered and to realise that I feel very old. I'm so pleased that it's done. And when I turned up today, I was so in that mindset that I was going to get a new block, I was going to pop it in, everything was going to be sorted out today. And Ed kind of slowed me down in the process, because I'm one of those people, and I'm sure some of you are as well, where I get very much like, want to sort it now. And Ed said, look, you've got a bit of time. He said, you've got a bit of time, and I think that you should make a better decision. So the explanation that Ed gave you there, I heard it, and he's been saying it to me all day. He's really been talking me around, so it must be very easy to persuade. And every single block, as Ed said to me earlier, he said every single block you've looked at has had a bit of a story. Oh, it's been in storage. Oh, it was good when it came out. Nothing is there that I can say it comes with a warranty or anything. So he said, as he said to you guys, you're just setting yourself back up for more failure in the future. And I'm always telling you all that you can rely on a Classic, but I think if I skip corners and something goes wrong in a few months' time, there are going to be so many people that say to me, well, I told you should have got a modern car. So I thought, no, let's do it properly. So I'm taking Ed's advice for a change, which he'll be very pleased, because usually I just crack on and do whatever I want to do. And we're going to go and take this down to the engine specialist. It's an A-series specialist, and in fact, I wanted to give you a little sneak peek. So I'm going to show you a clip of another engine he's done. It sounds amazing. So with Ed's persuasion and the sound of that engine, I thought, it's a bit silly not to, really. And plus, so many of you have reached out to me and been so sweet and helpful. I've had really nice offers of help. I've had people send kind donations. I've been overwhelmed with support and love from all of you. So I wanted to say, without getting emotional, I just wanted to say a massive thank you, because it's so nice, and so many of you just turned a really horrible situation where I was quite worried into something that was so much easier to manage. So thank you very much. This is the end of our first Tinkering Tuesdays. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm sure there's plenty of things that many of you experienced aficionados out there would do very differently to how I've done it. But remember, I'm not a mechanic, so don't take any of the advice that I've given you with anything more than a pinch of salt. And I really hope you've enjoyed the journey that we've been on today. And next Tuesday we'll be back. We're going down to the engine builders. We're going to find out what they recommend, and hopefully we can find out exactly what went wrong. So until next time, take care and drive safely.